Hi there, just a few more reflections on the Scottish independence vote. It's just a month now, and there's a lot of discussion, who won the debate, did anyone win the debate, blah blah, what's going to happen in the last few weeks of campaigning. Alex still thinks he can win it, and they're catching up and they might win it. I just want to compare the separation of Scotland from the rest of the United Kingdom with divorce. Now, many of us have been divorced. I'm glad to say I haven't been, and I have no plans to. But two people, of course, very close to me, people in my family, were divorced last year, and it was very miserable, and the unhappiness of it is still continuing. So I just want to think about divorce, because I think if Scotland decides to leave, I think it will be like a divorce. Now, what happens in a divorce? It's two people who've obviously made a choice to live together, who have lived together, who perhaps have had children, who've bought a home, who've been through all sorts of things together, start to not be so nice to each other. How does it begin? It begins maybe they're not talking so much, they're not being so considerate, maybe brushing past each other in the corridor a little bit unpleasantly, not listening to each other's needs, blaming the others. It moves to shouting, refusal to listen, and you get bitterness, you get fault finding. It's all your fault. No, it's not, it's your fault. Well, I turned around and told her, well, if it wasn't for you, this would have happened. And it gets worse. You slag me off, I'll raise you one. You point out one of my faults, I'll point out two of your faults. The bitterness grows, and eventually it reaches a point of no return. Could have been sorted out, differences could have been sorted out, would have been better for everybody, but eventually the lawyers get involved, and eventually deals get done with various degrees of bitterness and unhappiness. The house, the money, the children. Eventually the memories are poisoned, and the future that might have been is messed up. Now, I do know, obviously, of course, that sometimes there is an abusive relationship, and if a woman is getting beaten up regularly, or the husband is having affairs with other women, then the situation becomes unsupportable. And if you are in a relationship where the other partner is abusing you horribly and it can't be mended despite your best efforts, then separation may be the only way to go. Are things as bad as that with Scotland in the United Kingdom? Well, I really don't believe it. They are. Several of my best friends and fellow workers are Scots. They don't seem to think this is a good idea. Recently had a driving tour in Scotland, picked a car up at Edinburgh, went via Loch Leven, Loch Lomond, up to the Northwest Highlands, Ballachulish, up the Great Glen, Inverness, down through Pitlochry and back again. And we had a lovely time. Everywhere we went, we saw signs, as far as we could tell, of a country that seemed to be at ease with itself and doing okay. Most people who get divorced end up poorer and bitterer, and the children get hurt, whatever anyone says. And that's what I've seen in the divorce that's happened in my extended family recently. I would beg anyone considering a divorce to think very carefully. What have you done? How bad are things? How carefully have you thought about what's going to happen? I think most people in England really aren't even thinking much about this debate, this vote, but I think they should be thinking about it. I'll tell you one prediction and I'll finish here. If Alex suddenly gets his independence in Scotland, one of the first things that's going to happen to England, a lot of things are going to happen to England as a result of a separation. One is we will have to change our flag, and the other is we will have to abandon our nuclear deterrent. Now, I don't want to say I'm in favour of or I'm against. That's a big set of arguments. And it may be that it are good arguments we should get rid of our nuclear deterrent. After all, the world's getting safer all the time, isn't it? And Russia is a great country, no problems with any of our neighbours and anything. And of course, we can always rely on the United States to protect us, can't we? But nevertheless, it might be a good thing to get rid of our submarine-launched nuclear deterrent, because there is absolutely nowhere in England where you've got the low population density and deep water that you could possibly do it out of England. It couldn't be done. So if the Scots kick the trident out of Scotland, that means that England will no longer have a nuclear deterrent. And So the average Englishman who hasn't given a lot of attention to this will now think, well, this Alex Salmond guy, the new king of Scotland, he's taken our flag and he's taken our nuclear deterrent. I think a lot of people will feel very humiliated by that on a global stage, when Britain could lose her place, what's left of Britain could lose her seat at the United Nations Security Council. I just think that there would be a big increase, a big uptick in English nationalism and anti-Scottish feeling. I'm not saying this is right. I mean, I wouldn't feel that way myself, but you know, when people go in for a divorce, usually afterwards they are worse off, and I think Scotland and England will both be worse off if this vote goes through. And the impression is that the Yes campaign is appealing to emotion rather than careful feelings. The Scots want to keep the pound, but they won't be able to keep the pound if the English say no. And after Scotland has forced a divorce from England, I do not think that English people, or the increasingly right-wing government that we will elect after the Scottish Socialist MPs are no longer coming to Westminster, I think that England will be saying, okay, just like a partner who feels wounded after a divorce, you want a pound, you can't have it. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. Only a month to go.